procedure calls. What exactly are remote procedure calls? A remote procedure call is a high-level protocol that allows procedure calls to be made on a remote server. So this could be from a client CPU to a server CPU, and they're typically used for getting or creating client server based applications. An example of a call would be get IP address host name. Um, Back in 1981, a company named Xerox was the first to use remote procedure calls. However, back when they used they never called it remote procedure calls. They called it courier, and uh, this call is important for distributed applications for reasons I will say later on. Um, Remote procedure call typically uses UDP for sending data. However, if it does not fit in the datagram, we typically see the usage of TCP. How does this work? In 5 steps. In step one, the client stub procedure, and it passes the parameters. Um, these parameters are packed into messages that um, this is through the process called marshalling. And um, when the process of marshalling is completed, the message is then passed to the remote server. This is typically through the network. Um, and then once we get to the other server CPU, we basically do the opposite of what we did at the client CPU, which is we get the server stub again, but this time we unmarshal or demarshal the parameters, and then the server stub marshals the return value and sends the message back to the client. So it's sent back to the network of the client CPU. And in this, we can see client CPU and the server CPU. So we begin with step one. The client passes parameters to the client stub. And then in here we see the process of marshalling, which is the parameters that are packed into a message. And it gets sent from one operating system to the other operating system through the network. And then once we get to the server stub, this is where the exact opposite that what happens in the client CPU. So instead of marshalling, we will unmarshal all the parameters, and then once the message is returned, we send the message back to the client CPU. So what are some positives of RPC? In this picture is another visual on how it works. We get the client functions and stubs, then how they send it, and then it goes up and down again. It does the opposite, and then we send it back, the message. So basically, remote procedure calls can be used in distributed or also in the local environment. So it can be at your own work office. It could be local or it can be somewhere else, which is typically good. And also, internal message passing mechanism of RPC is hidden from the user. So this means that the data sent is secured since it's hidden. What are some negatives that we see of RPC? Is pointers are required. Data type IDs are sometimes lost, and this is due to the depends on the language that it's sent in. So the process of marshalling or unmarshalling will not occur. So this is a negative. And also, global variables are lost due to procedure operating on non-source machines. And lastly, it can since remote procedure calls can be implemented in different ways. it's not standard. So this can be prone to some errors. Thank you. Have a good day.